Hellblade is a jarring, frustrating, confusing video game experience about psychosis and mental illness, and it's fucking amazing.
Is this what hell is? A world shaped by Senua's nightmares. Maybe that's why people fear seeing the world through her eyes.
Yes, she's scared.
Because if you believe that Senua's reality is twisted, you must accept that yours might be too.
Ninja Theory's been developing this game for over 3 years now, with the goal of tackling a theme considered taboo in video games: psychosis and mental illness. The game delivers an experience to the player with someone who truly suffers terrifying delusions, hearing and seeing things that don't exist, distortions of reality, and much more.
Who are you?
An immense amount of research and professional consultation from mental health professionals went into creating this experience.
Mental health hasn't always been presented in the media in a way that is particularly helpful. It can be challenging to engage people with the subject matter, and there are a lot of preconceived ideas about mental health, and particularly schizophrenia and psychosis. So we hope our support allows the team to continue to collaborate with Paul Fletcher and with those who have experience of psychosis to create a game that provides a fresh perspective on the condition and allows audiences to engage with it in a way that just wouldn't be possible in any other medium.
So the stage was set for a new adventure, a journey into the Norse underworld called Hell, a vision quest fueled by madness and myth, a fantasy that was created by Senua's own mind, and one that we would experience through her eyes.
This is your mission. This is your quest. There is nothing else left.
The strength of Hellblade is in the story of Senua and her quest and how she perceives the world around her. The world is changing constantly in her mind, and she hears voices in her head and sees some goddamn fucked up shit. Her illness is represented by a creeping rod on her arm that's never been done before in a video game that creeps closer to her face every time you die. But we'll get into that controversial mechanic later. The game's linear story is constantly putting you and Senua through situations you don't want to be in. All that can be said without spoiling something you should play for yourself is that it's a stunning combination of real-life accounts of psychosis merged with a Celtic Viking spirit quest and a very interesting main character. As the game goes on, you get into a combat sequence and you're like, oh, there's nothing different about this except there's a bigger guy and he has a shield now. That means you can only hit him 3 times and then you gotta kick him. There's really no difficulty to it. Combat in this game is incredibly smooth. It's also incredibly simplistic. However, there are still cool themes of psychosis in the combat here as well. This might seem like a simple mechanic that's in a lot of games nowadays, but some enemies turn into clouds of smoke, where you can't fight them unless you parry them perfectly or use your focus ability, which isn't always available.
Remember your training.
It's kind of artsy-fartsy to say this, but this is a really great subtle nod again to mental illness issues. Senua is unable to interpret the best way to solve things and can't properly focus all the time because her mind is in chaos. These minor details are the kind of thing that tickles my brain, and it'll probably tickle your brain too, whether you notice it or not. There are also some sick visuals in the game, even in the combat, that emulate the hallucinations that people report to have with psychosis. So the combat's not the strongest point in the game. You have a light heavy attack, you have a dodge, you have a block, and if you block just in time you'll parry it and you'll get your focus back or something. It's very cut and dry, very simple. And sometimes the fights go on for too long, but it just goes on and on, like 5 minutes, and then you eventually die because you get overwhelmed. I died and I was like, okay, I went back to the checkpoint and then there was no one there. It was like you could just proceed. At that point, I was like, why are there no enemies here? Did I just waste my time fighting those enemies? Did I not need to fight those enemies? I can't tell if the game's either glitching or acting up, or if this is some crazy mechanic that they're trying to throw a monkey wrench in my lizard brain and telling me that, hey, you think video games work this way, well, we're changing it up, motherfucker. So I don't know if it was a glitch, or if it's some strange allusion to mental illness that I don't understand. It's way too deep for me. And it's a funny thing, because it can almost be misperceived as a catch-all for quirks in the game, or bugs, or issues with pacing, because they could always say, well, it's part of the experience. There are some shortcomings in the game that no artistic integrity can really excuse. So when it comes to non-combat encounters and situations, you'll be doing one of two things. A puzzle where you need to line up a thing with some other thing, briskly jogging or walking somewhere for some reason, usually with story things happening around you. Now the first one's almost always based on real issues with psychosis. Something simple like lining up patterns together can actually be a struggle for someone whose thoughts aren't in tune with reality. So these concepts make for pretty clever puzzles. The only problem here is sometimes the puzzles get really repetitive and kind of boring. And you just kind of know what's coming up because they copy-paste the same idea for a few rooms straight because they gotta make the game a little longer. And that's where the pacing becomes an issue. This only occurs in the first quarter of the game, so it's not really that big of a deal.
I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's really not that big of a deal.
So sorry.
It's completely fine. And then there's number 2. Sometimes there's no puzzle at all and you just gotta walk around and experience the atmosphere and the story that's happening both around you and in your head. Now these parts are really hit and miss for me. Sometimes you gotta backtrack in a massive area because you forgot to line up a visual cue and trigger something, and the pacing of the game is just all kinds of fucked when these things happen. And don't even get me started on this fucking tunnel. You literally just put a tunnel to make travel longer. Because you gave a door that just makes you not have to take that tunnel. Put that in the video. Put this in the video as well. While you're at it. Look at that. But then there are sequences where there's serious story and character development happening. These moments are the ones that are gonna make an impression on you and make Hellblade memorable.
It won't let me go.
Senua, my father, he taught me the hardest battles are fought in the mind, not the sword.
Now before we get to scores and wrapping up here, we gotta talk about the permadeath mechanic. This has been a point of debate among people who are bad at video games. Early in the game, you're told that if you die too many times, the rod on your arm will grow up to your face and presumably completely drive Senua crazy beyond saving. Literally, beyond saving. It would delete your save file. There's a certain quirk to this mechanic that I won't say in this video, but if you're interested in really figuring out what it is, you can find it in another video really easily. But if you haven't played the game, avoid looking for that. Now, it makes sense to question permadeath in a linear single-player game. The threat of permadeath in this game is not so much a punishment that you need to be careful of. As you know, as long as you're taking things seriously and you're not a goddamn scrub, you don't need to worry about it. It's more of something to stick in the back of your head, saying, oh shit, I died twice here. I didn't expect to die twice here. I just didn't understand this mechanic right off the bat and I'm fucking dead. I suddenly care a little bit more because I remember they said that permadeath thing. I am more stressed. The tension is upped automatically. Thinking back on it, it only added to the entire experience. It just made it that much better. Like, it was really engaging in a whole different way that games like that don't even try to tackle. So this concept, I will give brownie points, because it adds to the whole psychosis theme once again, where it's like, hey, if you fuck up a lot, you know, this affliction of hers goes from her arm to her head, and she literally loses her mind, and she cannot be saved.
Have you ever died before? It's a serious question.
Hellblade is an incredibly well-researched and well-rounded experience. It's actually insane to think about how, pun intended, how they put this together in such a way that accurately reflects mental illness while also being a very atmospheric, well-designed story, video game story. And despite the faults of repetitive combat and some repetitive puzzles and some pacing issues here and there, the overall experience is really memorable and educating. This game will confuse you, and as a result, it will frustrate you. And that's its goal. And it does it masterfully. It's not a nice experience. It's an experience that's worth going through. So if you decide to buy this game, don't torrent it, buy it. Support these developers. This is an awesome experience that they created. You might feel like you run into a wall where you just don't want to keep doing it. It's frustrating you. I would urge you to finish it. It's well worth it. This game gets a solid 9 out of 10, clocking in at 5.5 hours for $29.99 at release. The overall experience of this game was an absolute delight. If you're gonna play this game, play it in the dark, play it with headphones or surround sound, and play it in one go. Just experience it. Don't look up stuff. Don't look up, you know, spoilers. Don't look up, oh, permadeath, how does that work? It's like, how many deaths does it take? Don't worry about it. Literally just play it, accept it as it is, and you won't regret it. Thank you for watching this first review of mine. Let me know in the comments what you think. Click all the things, whether you like it or dislike it, you know what the fuck to do. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next review.
Please don't go. I want you to stay. I'm begging you, please. Please don't leave here. I don't want you to hate for all the hurt that you feel. The world is just illusion trying to change you. Please don't go. I want you to stay.